The NCAA taking shots at Caitlin Clark clearly for no apparent reason. If you pointed out Olivia Miles being second, why wouldn't you post who's first? You know who's first? Caitlin Clark. This screams intentional. Who is responsible and why? And this is a great question and a great stance to take from Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless, you've been cooking with fish grease. You've been cooking it up. 62 records as a rookie, and y'all couldn't find one to post about, huh?
The NCAA just did something with Caitlin Clark that is almost impossible to explain away. They put out a post celebrating former college basketball stars who are now setting records in the WNBA, featuring Olivia Miles, Angel Reese, A'ja Wilson, and Paige Bueckers. But Caitlin Clark? Nowhere. And normally you could look at something like that and say, maybe it was just a social media post. Maybe they picked a few players. Maybe Caitlin simply didn't fit whatever theme they were going for.
The NCAA went on their social media and posted all of the collegiate stars who have now made it to the NBA and are doing awesome things and breaking records. And they just so happen to omit and leave out the biggest star who's broken more records than anybody in Caitlin Clark. This is a clear jab and a clear shot, clearly disrespect toward Caitlin Clark for no reason.
Except there is one detail that destroys that excuse. The NCAA specifically celebrated Olivia Miles for recording the second most assists by a rookie in WNBA history. Second most. Do you know who is number one? Caitlin Clark. So somehow the NCAA managed to celebrate the woman sitting in second place without acknowledging the woman sitting directly above her in first. And that is where this stops looking like an innocent omission.
Olivia Miles is second for the most assists by a rookie in WNBA history. Well, if you pointed out Olivia Miles being second, why wouldn't you post who's first? You know who's first? Caitlin Clark. And that is what Skip is talking about. This was intentional, them leaving her out of this. Why would you point out Olivia Miles is second for the most assists by a rookie in WNBA history, but leave out the person who's first, which is Caitlin Clark?
And starts looking a whole lot more like the NCAA is trying to rewrite its own Caitlin Clark era now that she is no longer there. Because you cannot tell the story of modern women's college basketball without Caitlin Clark. You definitely cannot tell the story of record-setting former college players in the WNBA without Caitlin Clark, and you absolutely cannot talk about the second most rookie assists in league history without her name sitting right there at number one.
This is the NCAA's official Twitter or whatever, and it says they made their mark in college. Now they're setting records on the biggest stage. And you have Olivia Miles, you have Angel Reese, you got A'ja Wilson, you got Paige Bueckers. Caitlin Clark's nowhere to be found in this. Meanwhile, she has more records than all of these people combined. So it's just like, okay.
That is why this post has people asking questions. How do you research Olivia Miles's accomplishment without seeing Clark's record? And how do you build an entire graphic around former college stars making history in the WNBA while somehow leaving out the player who owns the NCAA all-time scoring record? At a certain point, we forgot Stop Sounding Believable. And Skip Bayless noticed it too. He publicly questioned who at the NCAA decided to praise the professional accomplishments of several former college stars.
We're going to get to what Skip said first, okay? Skip Bayless said, I would like to know who exactly working for the NCAA chose to post praise of the recent pro exploits of several former college stars while omitting Caitlin Clark's recent achievements. This screams intentional. Who is responsible and why? And this is a great question and a great stance to take from Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless, you've been cooking with fish grease. You've been cooking it up.
While leaving Caitlin Clark out, saying the omission looked intentional and asking who made that decision. That is really the question here. Not whether Caitlin Clark needs another graphic celebrating her. She doesn't. The question is why the NCAA suddenly seems so comfortable telling the story of women's basketball without the player who helped transform the size of the audience watching it. Because go back just a couple of years, when Caitlin Clark was wearing an Iowa uniform.
A'ja Wilson joins Diana Taurasi as the only players in WNBA history with 100 career 25 plus point game. Paige Beckers is the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 1,400 points and 400 assists. Olivia Miles is second for the most assists by a rookie in WNBA history. Angel Reese holds the records for most rebounds in a single game and most rebounds in a season.
Nobody at the NCAA seemed confused about her importance. Her games became national events, arenas filled up, and television audiences exploded. People who had never followed women's college basketball were suddenly scheduling their evenings around Iowa games. That wasn't some small bump in interest. Clark helped push women's college basketball into a completely different level of mainstream attention, and her tournament runs became cultural events.
Caitlin Clark broke 62 records as a rookie. 62 records as a rookie! And y'all couldn't find one to post about, huh? These people are crazy.
Her deep threes were everywhere. Every scoring milestone became breaking sports news, and the NCAA benefited from every second of it. They benefited from the attention, the ratings, the packed buildings, the social media engagement, and the millions of people suddenly invested in their tournament. There is nothing wrong with that, because that is what happens when a transcendent player comes through your sport.
Why would they leave out first, especially when that person also holds the NCAA scoring record? She's the all-time NCAA leading scorer. She brought y'all most viewed national championship games ever. And y'all disrespecting? Why? Who is responsible for this?
But if you are going to benefit from that player while she is there, you cannot turn around once she leaves and start telling the story like she was just another name passing through. That is what makes this particular post so strange. The NCAA wasn't posting about current college players. They were specifically celebrating former college stars for what they are doing now in the WNBA. If there was ever a post where Caitlin Clark naturally belonged, this was it. She owns the NCAA career scoring record and then entered the WNBA and immediately began piling up rookie records. She set the rookie assists record. She became the first rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double, and she produced statistical performances we had never seen from a rookie guard before. Yet the NCAA looked at all of that and somehow found room to celebrate the person behind her on the rookie assist list without acknowledging Clark herself.
Caitlin Clark has more 30-point, 10-assist games than the entire history of the WNBA combined. They left that out. It's not a part of it.
That is the part that fans are not going to let go. Because when you celebrate number 2, you automatically invite the question of who is number 1. The NCAA created that comparison themselves. They basically pointed toward Caitlin Clark's record while refusing to say Caitlin Clark's name. Think about how bizarre that is. Imagine posting about the second highest scorer in some category while deliberately avoiding any mention of the person who holds the record. The audience is obviously going to notice. And Caitlin Clark fans notice everything because they have spent the last few years watching this same strange dynamic play out around her. Clark becomes the biggest draw in the sport. And instead of everybody simply acknowledging what is happening, there always seems to be this hesitation. People want to talk about the growth without talking about who drove much of it. They want to talk about record television audiences without mentioning the player those audiences consistently show up to watch.
This is what people are talking about when we say the nastiness, the vitriol, the jealousy. It's beyond it, the WNBA. Now you got the NCAA in on it. The NCAA is in on it.
They want to talk about attendance without addressing whose games keep moving into bigger buildings. And now apparently we can add this to the list, celebrating former NCAA players breaking records in the WNBA while leaving out the NCAA's own all-time scoring leader. That doesn't mean every omission is part of some giant conspiracy. It doesn't mean there was a secret meeting where people sat around a table plotting how to remove Caitlin Clark from basketball history. They don't need to. The criticism is actually much simpler than that. When you repeatedly tell the story around someone, instead of acknowledging the obvious person at the center of it, people eventually notice the pattern. And this time, the NCAA made it incredibly easy to notice.
Someone said would assume it's UConn alumni because none of them have forgiven CC for beating them her junior year and ruining their chance at another ring. You thought a league that prides itself on DEI, abortion, non-inclusivity, and hate would accept the person that saved their league that meets none of those? Have you ever met any women? This is wild.
Because Olivia Miles deserves recognition. What she accomplished is impressive, and recording the second most assists by a rookie in league history is absolutely worth celebrating. But giving her flowers does not require pretending the record above hers appeared out of thin air. Caitlin Clark earned that record. If you are using the record as the measuring stick for Miles' accomplishment, Clark is already part of the story whether you want her there or not. That is why this post feels bigger than one graphic. It represents something Caitlin Clark fans have been frustrated about for a while now. There is this strange desire in some corners of basketball to prove that the sport has moved beyond her, or that her impact can somehow be spread around so evenly that nobody has to acknowledge just how enormous it has been. But history does not work that way. You cannot balance a record book for political convenience, and you cannot make everyone equally responsible for a phenomenon when the numbers clearly show that one player changed the scale. Caitlin Clark did not invent women's basketball. She did not build the sport by herself. There were great players before her. There are great players around her now, and there will be great players long after she is finished. But none of that requires pretending she did not fundamentally change the audience around women's basketball. Both things can be true. The sport had stars before Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark took the attention surrounding that sport somewhere it had never been before. That should not be controversial. The NCAA saw it firsthand. They watched their tournament become appointment television. They watched Iowa games generate massive audiences. And they watched Clark chase the scoring record while television networks treated nearly every game like an event. They watched people who could not have named 3 women's college teams suddenly arguing over bracket matchups and tuning into Final Four games. They know what happened, which is why pretending she somehow didn't belong in a celebration of former college stars making WNBA history comes across as ridiculous. Maybe somebody at the NCAA can explain the criteria. Maybe there is an innocent explanation that nobody outside the building has heard yet. Fine, then explain it. Explain how you land on the player with the second most rookie assists without acknowledging the player with the most. Explain how an all-time NCAA scoring champion who became one of the most statistically decorated rookies in WNBA history does not fit a post about former NCAA players setting professional records. Because until somebody explains that, fans are going to draw the obvious conclusion. The NCAA wanted to celebrate women's basketball after Caitlin Clark without making Caitlin Clark part of the celebration. And the problem is, you cannot erase somebody by simply leaving her off a graphic. The records are still there. The scoring record is still there. The television ratings are still there. And the sold-out arenas are still there. The tournament runs are still there. The moments are still there. And millions of people watched Caitlin Clark rewrite NCAA history in real time. Nobody needs the NCAA's social media department to confirm that it happened. And maybe that is the most ironic part of this whole thing. Caitlin Clark does not need the NCAA to keep her relevant. If anything, the NCAA should understand better than almost anyone what Caitlin Clark's relevance did for them. They got the packed buildings, they got the television audiences, the headlines, and the biggest stretch of mainstream attention women's college basketball has ever experienced. Now Caitlin has moved on to the WNBA, and suddenly the NCAA can put together a celebration of former college stars making professional history without finding room for the woman who helped define an entire era of their own sport. That is not going to erase Caitlin Clark. It just makes the NCAA look small, because Caitlin Clark has already outgrown the need for their acknowledgement. Her name is in the record books whether they put it on Instagram or not. Her impact is written into the ratings whether they celebrate it or not. And every time they try to tell the story without her, somebody is going to point out the giant Caitlin Clark-shaped hole sitting right in the middle of it, especially when they make the mistake they made this time. They celebrated second place, and everybody immediately remembered who was first. That may be the biggest problem with trying to erase someone from history. Sometimes the harder you try not to mention them, the more obvious their absence becomes. Because this post did not make Caitlin Clark look less important. It did the exact opposite. It reminded everyone that even when the NCAA is talking about other players, Caitlin Clark is still the measuring stick sitting in the background. Olivia Miles' accomplishment is impressive precisely because of where it places her in relation to Clark. And that is something the NCAA cannot edit out. They can choose the faces on a graphic, but they cannot choose what the record book says. They can choose which names appear in a caption, but they cannot control what fans already watched happen. They cannot make millions of viewers forget who brought them into women's college basketball in the first place. That is why this whole thing feels so unnecessary. The NCAA could have celebrated everybody. They could have acknowledged Olivia Miles and still acknowledged Caitlin Clark. They could have highlighted Reese, Wilson, and Buchers without acting like Clark suddenly ceased to exist. There was no reason to create an either-or situation. But by leaving Caitlin out, they created one themselves. And once fans noticed that they were willing to celebrate the player in second place without mentioning the player in first, the conversation changed completely. Now, the story is not about who the NCAA included, it is about who they left out. And that is a conversation they could have avoided with one name, Caitlin Clark. That is all it would have taken. One name, one acknowledgement, one simple recognition that the player who helped define an era of NCAA women's basketball is still making history at the next level. Instead, the omission became the story. And when you are trying to celebrate the growth and success of women's basketball, leaving Caitlin Clark out is almost guaranteed to create more attention than simply including her. So maybe the NCAA thought this was just another social media post. Maybe they assumed nobody would look closely enough to notice what was missing. But fans noticed, Skip Bayless noticed, and now the question is sitting there for the NCAA to answer. How do you celebrate second place without acknowledging first? And how do you celebrate the modern history of women's basketball while pretending Caitlin Clark is not standing right in the middle of it? Until they answer that, people are going to see this for exactly what it looks like. An organization benefiting from Caitlin Clark's history while slowly trying to tell its story without her. The problem for the NCAA is that history has already been written. Caitlin Clark's name is all over it. And if you've been watching the way basketball keeps trying to navigate around Caitlin Clark, instead of simply acknowledging what she has done, make sure you're subscribed. Because every time somebody tries to rewrite the history, Courtside Leaks is going to pull the receipts.